next session. Nice to introduce Anshuman Pandey. He's going to talk on a brief history of AI use cases today beyond hype. I think Ananta also mentioned, no, there's too much of hype about AI and, well, he has demystified it to all of us. Anshuman is CEO of Frello Technology Private Limited that has 2 subsidiaries implementing AI use cases in the renewable energy and education sectors. Anshuman has a BTech in computer science from SRM University and over 5 years of experience in the field of AI. Previously, a special student at MIT, USA, he has also worked as a researcher at the MIT Media Lab and Carnegie Mellon University and won international awards and hackathons. His research work has been accepted at prestigious conferences around the world. Waiting to hear you, Anshuman.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for your time. I see the audience is, at this time of the morning, I'll try to make it as lively as possible and worth your time. I'll just give I think Madam has already given a good introduction. I'll just try to skip this slide. I was a student at SRM in Chennai. My connection to Chennai has been very old. I came here in 2013, spent 2 years here before going to MIT as a student and then working at the Media Lab as a researcher. And then later on getting accepted as an AI researcher at ISR at CMU, where I worked with Dr. Raj Reddy. And then came back here. I wanted to perform some reverse brain drain because I kind of felt like there's a lot of brain drain already happening in the country. How do I go ahead and reverse that? So I created a small subsidiary called nexttech.io, in which undergraduates in India were able to learn cutting-edge technologies like machine learning and artificial intelligence. This was way back in 2015 when I had come back. And recently, I started up Frello Technology Private Limited. Now I have shifted the headquarters to Delaware, US, and we have converted the name to NimbleBox.ai. So I'll get started with my talk. I think I'll start with a question today, which is very important for everybody. Like, do you think AI will destroy mankind and take away all the jobs? If your answer is yes, raise your hand. Everybody's a little confused, okay? Yeah, I think, okay, how many people think, no, it's not going to destroy our jobs? This is not at all a crowd I need to convince. But I'll go ahead and start with my talk anyways. If you go ahead and Google artificial intelligence today as a user, you will see this very vague definition on Wikipedia, which goes on to talk about the theory, development, which does not tell you what exactly artificial intelligence is. Today, the perception about artificial intelligence is that it's something like Terminator, where it is going to destroy the mankind, and people think that it is going to destroy the earth and whatnot. And if the other part of the people think that it is something like Hey Siri or OK Alexa or OK Google. But this is not exactly artificial intelligence. Siri was based on a very simple language model. So what exactly has happened in the recent years is people have created a huge hype around artificial intelligence. And one of the major contributors of this entire hype is this person. If you recognize him, he's known for his ventures like SpaceX and Tesla. And he's also the owner of a company called OpenAI, which is working on deep learning, specifically deep learning algorithms like reinforcement learning, etc. And OpenAI recently built a bot which was able to defeat a person playing Dota 2, which is one of the most leading multiplayer games around the world. What has got him to get inspired and create this hype and FUD around artificial intelligence is this guy, Nick Bostrom. If you haven't heard of him, this guy is the head of Future Institute at Oxford University. Recently, he published a book called Superintelligence. This person has a very dystopian view about artificial intelligence and how it's going to replace everybody, all the blue-collar jobs, white-collar jobs. And he went on to say that 47% of all jobs will get replaced by artificial intelligence. The problem is, that is not the reality. This guy is a philosopher. People like us know exactly how programs work and get executed. So should we believe Nick Bostrom and Elon Musk that artificial intelligence is going to take over the mankind? Not really. The problem is, we go in cycles. Artificial intelligence is more than half a century old. And the only reason we are able to create this, we are realizing the potential of artificial intelligence is because we have realized that we have much more computation power today. Marvin Minsky started artificial intelligence back in 1950s when we didn't have any computer in particular which could compute anything at all. Storage of 24 kilobytes was seen as luxury back in those days. I have met Marvin Minsky at MIT Media Lab. He was given the Lifetime Achievement Award that day. And he told me a very, very important use case of understanding why artificial intelligence is super important and how do we make people understand that it is not going to take over. I'll talk about that in the later slide. But this guy is the father of artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence in those days was known as intelligence augmentation, IA rather than AI. Whereas, so Marvin Minsky met with another guy called John McCarthy. He's another famous researcher and scientist in artificial intelligence. They met at a very small conference in Dartmouth College back in 1956. And at this conference, Marvin Minsky meets with John McCarthy, and they talk about, okay, what do we call this thing, what we are building right now? And they were talking about perceptrons in those days. So they said, why not let's call it artificial intelligence? And this was the birth of artificial intelligence at a conference in 1956. So when we talk about artificial intelligence, it's nothing new. The math has remained the same since 1959. Not much has changed. So why are we talking about artificial intelligence these days, and what is the reason for all this hype? One of the major reasons is we have the internet. The boom of internet in 1995, which with Tim Berners-Lee trying to connect his entire lab so that he could talk to them, and eventually connecting the entire world, has connected each of us to the internet. And now with the new boom of 4G and telecom players like Jio, it has become a very competitive space. So one of the reasons why we are realizing artificial intelligence is because we need data. If we are creating anything which has to learn and predict things, we're going to need data. A lot of it is better, and a lot of it in unstructured or structured format is even better. So we realized that we can use something called graphic cards for deep learning and not just for gaming. This was a hack which someone created back in 2009. And since we have generated, you put 2 plus 2, you will see that we have data, we have the computation power, we can literally create anything that learns on its own. This started back in 2009 when a researcher out of Stanford said, oh, hey, look, there's a graphic card which a lot of people use for rendering games or creating models in Photoshop, etc., CAD models, etc. How about I find a way to create a program which is nothing but the replica of the human brain and can work on this? Because this is much powerful than any CPU out there, the Xeon processors from HP and all the best-in-class hardware. So basically what we are here today are talking is because of one researcher who figured out that you could use GPUs for deep learning models. And this was a major breakthrough in 2011. A small blog post about how you can use graphic card for deep learning became a huge hit among researchers. And from there, it was the beginning of the era of artificial intelligence, and people went into a dystopian view. Oh, look, this is happening. So it is like time repeats itself. This is 1975 all over again. IBM has come up with a small algorithm called Deep Blue, which is able to play chess. And now we have AlphaGo. So, and electric cars are booming. There was Saturn back in the 1980s, and now we have Tesla. So what do we realize? That we are repeating, again, what had happened in the 1970s. So the Google is the new IBM, I must say. Look at the amount of data which we are generating, and this is around 3 years old data. This is from a company called Domo, and they predicted all of this is happening in 1 minute, 72 hours of YouTube video, which is quite a lot, 200 million emails per minute, number of searches around 4 million per minute. Facebook users are sharing around 2.5 million things on Facebook. And this has kind of doubled over the last 3 years as more and more people are getting connected to the internet, specifically in third and second world countries. So you can imagine we can literally predict anything about a user based on all the information you can see on the screen right now. You can talk about their preferences in video content and audio content, kind of things they search on the internet. And this is what most people and most companies today talk about, which is the filter bubble. Everything you do on the internet is eventually recorded, and then you're able to see advertisements along those lines. Your recommendations, your video content, your music content on Prime, etc., are all predicted based on your behavior. So this is a huge amount of data, and this is insanely useful for improving your search result. While a lot of hippies in computer science would argue that, oh, this is a breach of privacy and whatnot, but everything comes at a price when you're using it for free. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are at the cusp of changing mankind today because we have realized that we have more computation power than ever before. And from here, most of the things will get automated. So everybody is thinking that it is going to fade away all the jobs, but it is the next software boom. We are back in 2004 when IT is going to have a revamp. And eventually, more software libraries will come, artificial intelligence, coding will become easy, more tutorials, more institutes like NASCOM will come up with their programs where you can study and learn. People who don't have money will go on and learn it open source and contribute to the open source community. So this is 2005 all over again. It happens every now and then in the cycle of software, where it started from 1995, the internet boom, and then the crash in 2001, and then again another boom in 2005, where we realized that everything could be programmed in Java, and JavaScript became a thing. And now we are into the next phase of software, where we are finding that we can literally integrate artificial intelligence in everything. So there are libraries for running your models in the browser. There are libraries for creating chatbots. You can literally create a chatbot on Messenger in 2 minutes with something called wit.ai. The possibilities are endless. And how do we embrace this? And a lot of people get confused between what exactly is the goal of artificial intelligence. How do we define what is the goal? So as a researcher who is not really from the corporate world, I will give you the 3 exact use cases where artificial intelligence lies. And some of it is a hype, and some of it is already happening. The caliber of artificial intelligence is divided in majorly 3 categories. First is the narrow intelligence, second is the general intelligence, and the third is super intelligence. Let me explain how the 3 calibers of artificial intelligence work. In the first is, we are trying to achieve the domain level intelligence, where we have data about something, and it can do something very narrowly, very much better than a human being. So the accuracy will be much better than human intuition. And this is happening everywhere. You might be seeing this on Amazon. People bought this as well. You might be seeing it on Netflix, recommended TV shows and movies for you. You might be seeing it on Prime. Oh, would you like to watch also this TV show? So this is a very, very niche vertical domain where you have data about something and you can just perfect it to build one model about it perfectly and then predict things. But here's the thing, narrow intelligence does not define general intelligence. By general intelligence, I mean how you and me think. Me coming up with all these words, you understanding it, is being self-aware, being generally intelligent. Let me ask you a simple question. What do you think is smarter here, a fighter jet or an owl? How many people think that a fighter jet is smarter than an owl? You can raise your hands. Okay, one there. A few people confused at the back. How many people think the owl is smarter? And why would you think that the owl is smarter? It's a simple, yeah, go ahead.
It's got its innate intelligence, which the fighter jet may not be trained to do the kind of thing that it is to do. So
Brilliant.
it can follow these sort of instructions.
Exactly.
Fighter requires a human being to do it. So there is a man behind it, but he drives on it.
That's a brilliant point.
Basically, can learn from scenarios and then change its reaction. So it's extremely, but for example, that would be a big new scenario the owl may come across.
Right.
Then, based on its past experience and past knowledge and instincts, it will start reacting to it in a different manner.
Brilliant.
Exactly the intelligence.
And that's a brilliant response. This is exactly what Marvin Minsky told me back in 2014, that what do you think is smarter, a fighter jet or an owl? And the simple answer I gave, of course, a fighter jet. It can do much better things which humans cannot, like locking targets, going in autopilot mode at a certain altitude. And he said, you're wrong. The owl can think for itself. The owl is self-aware about its surrounding. So it is always much smarter than the fighter jet. And this is exactly where we have a perception about artificial intelligence that it is literally going to replace everything. But the problem is, artificial intelligence is good in single tasks. We can make it to perfect a few things, but not everything at once. So this is where we are stuck at this point in 2018. The second goal of artificial intelligence is achieving human-level intelligence, where it can think like you and me, something like Samantha from the movie Her, or the movie Artificial Intelligence, or something like Robot by Rajnikant. But this is far-fetched. even if we had to combine all the computation power on Earth, we will still not be able to achieve human intelligence. And talking about super intelligence, it is really far-fetched. It is like an urban legend to talk about achieving super intelligence, machines that can think beyond the capability of a human being. And one of the reasons this is because we have hardware today to do really large computations at once, but we do not have the hardware to actually mimic the human brain. I'll tell you why. Now we have talked about the three calibers of AI. ANI is already happening at this point of time. Artificial general intelligence is the future, which you will be seeing by 2030, 2040. Super intelligence, maybe not in this century. Reason being, MIT, while my time at MIT, and I was taking this class by a professor named Patrick Henry Winston. He has a famous book on artificial intelligence. He talks about there are 100 billion neurons in the human brain. 100 billion neurons is quite a lot to compute. If I had to break down it in layers, there are a total of 6 layers in the human brain. Today, we might have reached just 3. And that is after so many years of building hardware. And we are not even close to achieving half of the human intelligence. So we are trying to replicate in neural network programs the caricature of the human brain. We are creating nodes, we are attaching weights and whatnot. But they are essentially a black box. By black box, I mean if I had to create a neural network program today, and if I would give it data and I would tell, okay, predict this, it would tell me what it is predicting, but it will never tell me how it reached that conclusion. See, artificial intelligence is like a small child. You tell it, okay, this is colored red, that is red. So the next time it sees red, it will be like, oh yeah, that is red as well. You're giving it many use cases for it to understand, but it is never enough to predict everything. So when we talk about that, let's talk about what has happened so far. I gave you a small brief of what has been happening. I'm really happy that nobody here has a dystopian view about artificial intelligence. Let's take at what has been done so far by research. Google came out with something called the Deep Dream algorithm back in the 2016, where they were able to train a neural net based on many, many images that Google has. Google literally has the data trove of the entire world. And it started making its own images in particular. And people thought, oh my God, I think this is singularity all over again. The robots are going to take over. But what exactly happened was, the neural network was going back and back to the main features it had seen in different pictures. So you can see that this is actually a picture of dogs, and you can see a corgi somewhere here, if I can. So you can see this is the picture of a corgi. But what it has done is, it has taken the main feature of each image it had, which are the eyes, and it has put all over the image. So this was nothing but a confused neural network rather than a robot taking over the mankind. And then we saw a similar picture came out, and you can see the artificial intelligence here was trained on many, many scenery images, and it was able to dream of something like this. So basically it was going through these number of iterations that was overlapping different data sets it had seen in the past. But this is nowhere close to taking over mankind. Then there is something called neural artistic style transfer. How many of you have used the app called Prisma? Okay, brilliant. That is exactly neural artistic style transfer, where we are taking a picture and we are taking a style and overlapping the two. So I can train an artificial intelligence to mimic different artists, Van Gogh, Leonardo da Vinci. And if I had to take a picture of this entire audience and run it through a neural network which was trained on how to paint like Leonardo da Vinci or how to paint like Van Gogh, it would create a similar artistic style transfer. Basically, a picture like this, if it was trained on this type of painting style, it would eventually give an output like this. So all of this is artificial intelligence in real life use cases. You can see another image where we have a currency note here, and these are pictures of bagels, and if I had to combine the two, it would eventually give a style transfer of this. Similar use cases, as you can see. Different paintings, you can see different mosaics here, based on the training data of a different painting. And then again, a few other use cases you can see. So you can see that we have reached a level where it is not just making decisions of a right travel partner or recommending you products on the internet, but it is also transforming into video and audio and picture level based use cases, where you can literally transform and create use cases where there was literally no training data, but you had the computation power for it. A few other use cases. And then we have also achieved something very, very important recently, is auto-colorization, where you might have a black and white picture, but you want to automatically colorize it. This is actually possible today with artificial intelligence if we were able to train a large amount of picture data and overlap, and then it will automatically colorize these images. This is the power of artificial intelligence today between audio and audio and visuals. Let's look at a use case video. Yeah. This is Charlie Chaplin. Left side is his black and white original movie which was created back then. On the right, you can see it is auto-colorized. This is auto-colorization in real time to a video. So you can see that this video was trained on different videos which were already colorized. And eventually, now the trick here is that this video which was trained was based just on old movies which had come eventually when there was color cameras. And then it was able to auto-colorize the entire video segment of Charlie Chaplin into something like this. So neural style transfer for video has also become a reality. A few of the other use cases you will see, this is from University of Freiburg. You can take a look at, okay. For some reason, the video is not playing. I will keep going on and talk about NLP and deep learning today. Another recent breakthrough which came out of MIT back in 2014 is LSTM models, which is long short-term memory, where you're able to take different data sets and it is able to predict what will be the future outcome based on Markov models. So in this use case, somebody created a Twitter bot which was trained on all Donald Trump speeches, and eventually it started creating its own speeches eventually. So you can see that it is mimicking exactly what Donald Trump would eventually say. You can see he's like, we have to end education. What they do is unbelievable. How bad. Nobody can do that like me. Believe me. Something similar to what Donald Trump would say. So this is another. So getting inspired by that, I created something called Deep KRK, which is the Indian version of Donald Trump. He's a Bollywood actor, and he gives a lot of reviews. And I was able to train based on all his content and speeches he has given. And eventually he's like, I am not the #1 critic. Only 32% of people watched my review of Nirja Today in the world. So you can see that we are able to create a mimic of a person based on the data which they have generated either through speech or either through tweets or Facebook status. We can scrape all that data and mimic entirely you. In fact, if I had to today create a caricature of you, we could just take all the database from your WhatsApp messages and create a chatbot which could talk like you. It is possible today. There are other different use cases around this is what happens when I combine two personalities, two extreme personalities if I had to. Abraham Lincoln, who literally abolished slavery from America, and somebody who wanted to end the world, Hitler. So I created a chatbot called Deep Linkler. Linkler is a combination of Lincoln and Hitler. And you can see that the personality is confused in itself of what it wants to say. I could not destroy, I would be ready to suffer. So it is in a self-contradictory mode where it is trying to become Hitler and Lincoln at the same time. And there are other use cases. In 1918, I am the warfare, the struggle of civilization. The only answer to our absolute liberty is the destruction of nations. It keeps self-contradicting itself because it is a combination, it is a personality based on two extreme personalities. Today, you can do the same thing with data sets based on movies, etc. And on top of that, AI can learn to write its own poems. This is kind of possible because there is just so much data around poems. If I had to take today, create an AI program that can write its own poem, I would go to one writer and take all his poems, create a Markov model, and then create a LSTM model, and then expect it to write new poems altogether. So based on Shakespeare's poems or anything, new poems can be created today. You can look at Pandarus. This is actually a poem created by an AI. A lot of people believe that it is not, but it is actually created by AI. Then there are other places where AI is getting implemented where you can see it can learn to write its own books. If I had to write something on based of Lord of the Rings or Game of Thrones, basically 7 books have come out and you're waiting for the 8th book, we can train an artificial intelligence model on all the previous 7 books and expect it to write the 8th version of it. we can, by this, we can literally bring out back the writers who have long gone, writers from back in 1800, 1950s, famous writers like Agatha Christie. We can train AIs based on their books and expect an AI to write book like Agatha Christie would, or based on, or create music like your favorite musician. So you can see this is again a AI created book. It has given quite a lot of references. It is so neat and clear that it doesn't look like it is an artificial intelligence which has written this. So other use cases, this was something I recently worked on. AI can learn to write its own research papers. Getting inspired by the pseudonym Satoshi Nakamoto, who was the creator of Bitcoin, I created a fake account called Santoshi Nagamathu, and I applied LSTM models. I took a lot of research papers from India and around the world and created an AI which could write its own research paper. And I'm kidding you not, it got accepted in all the research publications I applied to in India, which is kind of surprising. You can take a look at this. Yeah, an AI can become a doctorate earlier than any human can right now. So to my surprise, I was surprised to see that AI was able to write its own research paper. I was inspired by this because somebody had already written a research paper just using autocomplete in iPhone. So I was like, why not take it next level? Expect an AI to write its own research paper. And it ended up doing it. It got accepted everywhere. If you are interested in seeing those acceptance emails, please meet me after the talk. Then we are talking about auto captioning and how AI is able to take a look at images and automatically tell what is happening in it. You can take a look at this use case where there is a guy sitting here, and it has automatically captioned man in black shirt is playing guitar. Other use cases include construction worker in orange safety vest is working on road. This is a very smart algorithm which was able to understand what is happening in the picture and auto caption it. This is absolutely AI, no human intervention at all. It was just trained on a large data set of captions which were accurate to the image. So there's two layers happening in this. One is it is understanding what is in the picture based on different characteristics, like if there is an animal, if there is an object, etc., and then using NLP models to auto-caption it based on the text it has learned. So you can see other use cases like girl in pink dress is jumping in the air. Very accurate. Black and white dog jumps. So this is a little complicated because it got confused, like what it should say. It has to be unbiased at the same time. And then young girl in pink shirt is swinging on swing. So all these are models created by, in fact, the same thing is currently being used by Google, where they're trying to train their entire image data set so that it auto-captions itself. We can take a look at how it is happening in language, in real-time translation of language. This is a video from Google, which I think would be interesting. If we can increase the volume, of the video. Okay. Language models today, Google Translate, where you can just take a mobile phone, put it on a different text, and it automatically translates it. So let's take a look at this.
Okay, here we go. Testing. 1, 2. 1, 2. And flip it. There.
Up, down. So you can see how it was able to translate text in real time. And eventually, as more and more data is generated in regional languages like Tamil or Telugu, Kannada, eventually this will work on these texts as well. So we are generating more and more content for these useful tools which can actually make our life easier. One of the use cases which has happened and picked up quite a lot of traction is how is artificial intelligence able to play a game? And you might have seen the case of AlphaGo. Since I'm guessing some speaker would have already covered it, I did not include it in my talk. But I will give you other use cases where artificial intelligence can master at playing a game like Super Mario or anything else. They use something called reinforcement learning for this. This is a very famous game which came out back in 2014, I think. It's called Flappy Bird. And it was so difficult, everybody was hooked to it for around many, many months until eventually a game gets old and people move on. So what happened was an artificial intelligence researcher was able to master an AI to play this game. What it did was it took all the use cases possible at a particular time, and basically Flappy Bird, you just keep pressing or you keep tapping the phone, and the bird keeps jumping up and down. So he was able to divide the entire video frame into segments, take out all the best ones. Eventually, he took the first frame, divided it further, kept dividing it further until it was able to reward it for places where it did not make a mistake. So in reinforcement learning, I keep training the AI on different use cases, but I reward the AI just on the last case where it won. So it is basically like training a child all over again, where if it is having a good behavior, getting good grades, I reward it with a chocolate. So it feels like, oh wow, if I need a chocolate again, I probably have to do the same thing. I have to perform better. And this is how reinforcement learning works. So it removes the possibility of error and it improves the accuracy of AI models. Let's take a look at how he was able to do it. This is from a developer. So you can see it is not stopping at all. Eventually this game would have been insanely impossible to implement. It just doesn't stop. So in this case as well, simulations or particular universes can be mastered by artificial intelligence if we are able to get the right data and train it well. Of course, artificial intelligence can play Super Mario, and it is really good at it as well. Let's take a look at how it works.
Welcome back, Seth Bling here. You're watching a skilled player play Super Mario World, but this player is not human. It's a computer program I wrote called Mar.io. This program started out knowing absolutely nothing about Super Mario World or Super Nintendo's. In fact, it didn't even know that pressing right on the controller would make the player go towards the end of the level. It learned all of these things through a process called neuroevolution. In this video, I want to teach you about how Mar.io learned to beat this level, Donut Plains 1.
Much better than a human brain player.
And how it's all...
And eventually you will see that any game out there from even which is conversational or story-based can also be mastered by AI. A lot of useful research has been done around the world in this space as well. Let's take a look at one.
Materials make distinctive sounds when you hit and scratch them. These sounds can tell us how objects behave when we physically interact with them. They can convey whether an object is hard or soft, smooth or rough, and rigid or deformable. In this work, we consider the material understanding task of predicting what sound something will make when you hit it. We give an algorithm a silent video of someone striking things with a drumstick. We ask it to produce a plausible soundtrack to go along with it. To perform this task well, the algorithm has to recognize the materials that are being hit and the actions that are being performed.
So eventually they were able to train sounds on real world and eventually overlap the same thing. For example, if I had to touch this thing and make a noise, the AI was able to predict exactly what sound it would make. So I'll come back to the reality where we are right now here with all the computation power and reality is here. Ignore the obscenity here, but this is from Wait But Why, which is a very famous blog. The possibilities are endless if we have more computation power. The reality is that we cannot escape artificial intelligence. Job profiles are changing. What was not a job before has become a job now. We will get replaced eventually, but there will be new jobs which we can pursue. So I will go into resources if you want to pursue data science, etc. I will tell you if you're a company, how we can help you. Let's take a look at this. Henry Ford first came out in 1939, or maybe even before, 20s, I guess, with his concept of assembly line. And everybody said it is going to destroy the car manufacturing industry, it will replace all workers and whatnot. Today, car industry is one of the largest industries in the world after electricity. Similar things happened when the computer first came out in 1995. People in Indian parliament were fighting that computers should not enter India. And today we can see IT is one of the leading sectors, growing sectors, creating jobs all across the country, irrespective of what people thought back in 1995. So beyond the hype, these are the facts. Tencent is the largest Chinese company after Alibaba. They said they need 2 million AI engineers. 2 million AI engineers is quite a lot. And we only have 2 lakh engineers. This will eventually increase by 2025. LinkedIn has seen a spike in data science role, and it is nowhere near destroying humanity. We are just reinventing industries, different industries, and putting just a pinch of AI in everything. Bigger companies have already entered it. Google bought an AI lab back in 2015. They spent 400 million pounds on that. Facebook has developed its own AI research team. They have offices in New York and Paris. Uber is developing their own self-driving cars, where they have put quite a lot of money in the city of Pittsburgh. When I was at CMU, I actually traveled in one of these. Marvelous. Absolutely no error whatsoever, and much better than a human being. The only thing is that laws don't allow them to put nobody at the driver's seat. There should always be somebody behind the wheel. So don't get left behind. My company, NimbleBox, can help you. Let's go into my marketing pitch already. Can I have 2 more minutes? Okay, I have 5 more slides. I'll not waste too much of your time. My simple recommendation is artificial intelligence is available to all. You don't have to pay anything to anybody. You can simply log on to major online courses and learn it from scratch. Most of the time, these online courses are also free if you just write a single statement, I cannot afford this course. And they'll be like, sure, go ahead and try it for free. So avoid workshops, avoid paid structures where you have an illusion of learning something, but you end up paying it. We kind of have this illusion in India where we run after the certificate, not after the knowledge. So time has come where you avoid that, but you actually focus on the real knowledge. If you are a company, and if you have not looked at the McKinsey Executive AI report, you should go to their website, search for Executive Guide to AI. They have very nicely displayed all use cases that can help your company, where exactly you can implement AI in your company. Because not everything you see can be AI friendly, because we have to check the data is right, the models are right, how good is the data, and will it actually help if we automate the process. So today everybody is like, let's outsource AI work, we can't do analytics in-house. My conclusion is, let's not outsource AI work, because you know your business better than anybody else. Why would a third person come to you and tell that they can do something better for you? It's like an investment banker approaching you, trying to convince you that he can do a much better job with your money, because you cannot. That's not exactly the case. Don't outsource, because outsourcing means you will get out of business. Try to foster innovation in your own company. In fact, try to foster major online courses, workshops, internal hackathons, and we can help you do that. We will not charge you anything. It's absolutely free. We can help build your AI team from scratch. The reason why I'm here is because we have a platform called NimbleBox.ai. Most of the work for starting an AI project takes 3 to 4 hours of getting the right environment on the cloud, like a GPU setup, what dependencies would you require, libraries, etc. We have reduced the time to 1 minute. So per quarter, we are saving companies 35 days of work just because the environment is already ready. They just have to start, go ahead and code it. And what happens on NimbleBox stays on NimbleBox. So you focus on the code, we take care of everything else. It's almost like GitHub for artificial intelligence. We already have around 10 companies from Chennai who are already testing out and using our platform. So don't let anybody tell you that you're going to get out of job. We are going to stay relevant. AI is an enabler, not a hype. And here's my recommended reading list. If you are getting started with artificial intelligence and data science, this is a must go-to channels like Towards Data Science, KD Nuggets, Data Camp. These are very useful resources if you want to get started with artificial intelligence. If you're aspiring for a job as a data scientist, don't pay anybody. Please take my advice, don't pay anybody. You can learn everything online for free. Andrew Ng's machine learning course is a good starter if you know programming. Then you can get into a deeper level of understanding of deep learning and reinforcement learning at fast.ai. There are other free courses like deep learning on AI. And once you have mastered all of it, you can eventually participate and test out your skills on Kaggle competitions. These are the resources very important for learning. If you are getting into machine learning and AI, go ahead and check out reddit.com's Learn Machine Learning thread or r/artificial. And then you can check out Siraj Rawal on YouTube. This guy has made some really nice tutorial videos. You can check out Slack channels, communities which are talking about artificial intelligence. So coming back to the point, there were a few people who raised their hand. I want to ask again, do you think AI is going to destroy jobs and take over the mankind? They're synonymous. One depends on the other. Okay, thankfully nobody raised. I was successful in converting everybody today that AI is an enabler and it is going to create a lot of jobs. Thank you for bearing with me. If you have questions, I would be happy to answer.
Yeah, well, I have a point. Now that we could put AS to...
Can you put the last slide back? Thank you.
Now, if we could put AI to such a good use, I'm saying, why can't we use AI maybe to teach the kids in our corporation schools or something like that, where you could really take up, measure the innate skills. Every kid has got a different innate skill. Maybe analyze their innate skills and then maybe use that, measure that, and then maybe make them, learn maybe subjects like maybe mathematics, which is always fearsome for the kids. So I think that could be a good use case if you could use AI to teach the kids in our real corporation schools who come from the lower strata of society.
Good point. So the question is, can we use artificial intelligence to help kids learn and tailor education in particular, if I would had to summarize your question? Democracy has its own perks. Some of it is good. Some of it is that we are really averse to change. Personalization of education using artificial intelligence is already happening in China, where, in fact, kids in China are learning artificial intelligence right from 5th grade. So how do we circumvent the problem of having a nice structure of where we can have a word of everybody, but still implement models like these? I think one of the things which we can do is we can go outside the education system, where students can use their time after school, between classes, where they're allowed to do whatever they want and go ahead to portals like Fast.ai, Coursera, and take these courses on their own. The only thing which we can do is we can motivate them to go ahead and learn something. But bringing a systematic change, I'm afraid that will still take some time in India.
Yeah, okay.
So many patients. I mean, apart from that, right now we have a stall for from Shankar Netralaya, but there are so many people where affordability is less, where a country having such a large population, can this data help out, predicting an onset of any disease or any, how do you find the AI use case in that?
Good point. The question is, can we use AI in healthcare? There are two sides to that question. There's some people who are promising that they can cure all diseases with AI, and there's the other which are actually doing the real work. And the one which are saying that they will cure everything is IBM. They came out with Watson back in 2005, and they said that everything is going to be sunshine and rainbows. And now people have started realizing it is nothing but a little bit of fad. Use cases where AI can help Shankar Netralaya. I'll give you a small use case. If you go to a rural place, remote location to treat patients, you can train an AI model to just use the mobile phone camera and find out if their eye is infected with anything or not. The accuracy will be much better than what you will find in traditional human intuition. So vertical use cases like that, we are absolutely sure that we can do a much better job. Scans is one of them, because there's a lot of image data and we can train all the data set. Okay, this was the case where he had a problem, this was the case where he did not have a problem, and we can curate that data set and create a prediction model where next time it sees a scan, it will automatically say, okay, there's something wrong with the scan. Why don't you go ahead and check the patient again? But do not believe on anybody who says that they're going to predict diseases. There's a lot of people doing that already in the world. And I'll tell you why. Because our body is the most complicated structure on earth. And AI is not there to predict, okay, what is going wrong. Even with intuition. You can never beat the intuition of a doctor compared to an AI, because that is just based on data sets. Who knows what if the data set is biased? Problem in our artificial intelligence with healthcare is the data is mainly curated and generated in Caucasian countries. White people tend to collect more data, curate it. We create statistics, tables, and everything. In India, if we had to create a data column, one of the reasons we wouldn't do it because the population is too high. So we can only work on use cases which are possible to be automated and where we can implement AI. Any other question?
Any other questions?
No, you said outsourcing, AI cannot be outsourced. But if you know the IT service industry in India, like example, the top giants, say TCS, Infosys, Wipro. So we mainly, these companies live with outsourcing. So what is the message that you have for these companies to look forward for AI? And what kind of skills the employees should adopt?
Very important question. The question is, when outsourcing is the major industry of IT in India, how can we help do that? I think the question is a little different. What we are outsourcing is development of software. So if you have to create something, you would know better what needs to be done with the data, because the client might be a car manufacturing company. They would not go ahead and create their own AI team. But since you're a software company, it is always much wiser to create your AI team. Now, people come with this problem that, oh, what if the employee leaves? We spend so much money on him and he leaves. I think that is an HR problem, not a skills problem. Eventually, if you create your in-house data team, they will keep learning, documenting cases which, as and when they come across. But if you had to outsource everything to Genpact or some other AI company or analytics company, what if they're not even sure about what the data is? Or what if they have not seen use cases which you might have seen before? So when it comes to learning skills for IT professionals, it's very simple. We are back in 2005, as I keep mentioning. You have to learn artificial intelligence from scratch. It's going to be a little difficult, and I'll tell you why. Because this is not like learning a new programming language and you can just go ahead in the market and apply with a job. Hey, I know ASP.NET, hire me. It's not going to happen because artificial intelligence is a lot of mathematics and advanced calculus. So if I had to tell the advice which I had to give today was get started. Start with an open source course online, sign up, see how the mathematics of artificial intelligence work, learn the basic linear algebra to make statistical models, and then build up on that. Because until NASSCOM open sources their platform for educating you, why should you wait until April of 2019 or wait for your company to give you something until you become irrelevant? How about we start right now? How about we start today? So this is what I tell everybody, that if we have to start with machine learning and AI, the major thing we have to do is start.
I actually have a counter view to that. You see, India is a country where million jobs have been created in the IT services industry. And I agree your enthusiasm to create. But India is not a land of creators. India is a land of servicemen. We like to develop ASP.NET pages. So the equivalent of job creation in Indian IT services industry is TensorFlow. Become an expert certified in TensorFlow. So all you're saying is good for the startup guys, young who are enthusiastic about mathematics, but that is only 0.1% of Indian IT skill set or services people. Thanks, but no thanks, but that's the reality. So let's not kid ourselves. IT service companies, the big companies, there's Nextair. It's only startups who are very forward-looking like you, who are able to think beyond the money-making, dollar-ish to rupee make companies out of it. That's what we have done for the last 35 years. So it will continue. So in that spirit, I think a better advice for IT services companies, become certified in TensorFlow. Get those jobs from US.
Awesome.
That's what is going to happen in terms of creating new revenue streams for the Infosys or Wipros.
Very true.
Because we're not on startups here.
And I will have another, I think it was more of a statement than a question, but I'll take it. The point made was, IT is a service industry. And we are not creatives. It's the same thing which Britishers came and they told that you don't know English, take English, now you're a good country. So we are creative. We are the land of amazing music. We are the land which literally taught yoga to the world. So please don't tell us that we're not creative. We are more than creative to the entire world.
I think that was a brilliant
And
answer.
No, but that's not where the jobs are.
Sir, I've understood your question. Let me answer. So concluding to that point, here is another contrarian view which the industry will tell you. Get certified in this particular stream. My opinion is, get certified, but understand what the certification means. If you are not implementing the certification, what is the point of having a certification at all?
Agreed. Absolutely.
I
Yeah, thank you so much.
One last question I'll
One
take.
last question.
Food industry or agriculture industry, any use cases you come across from the AI side?
Brilliant. I will take that question, and I'll also create a point of why we are creative. IIT Bombay students who came from a very frugal background, their parents had some piece of land with them. After they graduated, they thought they would not take a job. So what they did was they started using drip irrigation systems on they wanted to modernize their farms, and at the end of the day, farming is a huge industry in the country. Use case which they did was, when a new fresh cucumber comes out of the farm, they were able to put it under a camera and tell if it is ripe, if it is good for use or not. How they did was, they found a data set online, available for free, where all the cucumbers which were ripe and green were good. So what they did was, they trained an AI, and they started mapping all the cucumbers that were coming out of their farm and telling which one is good. So they were able to segment it, send the good cucumbers to the city, and the bad ones were left, and they were able to find out what is happening. The use cases are several. It is all about how fastly you are able to find it. And one of the major myths of this sector is that you need to learn programming to become a data scientist or an artificial intelligence expert. Let me break that myth. You need not be an expert in programming to understand data science and machine learning. I have seen astrophysicists, I have seen musicians, I have seen painters who have gone on to do well in artificial intelligence. It's all basic statistics and mathematics. If you're good at math, you will become a good data scientist. Programming has got nothing to do with it. So use cases are several. It is all on the eye. So if you are a domain expert in agriculture, etc., you will automatically see, okay, maybe this process which is happening in my farm can be automated. If it is visual, if you're able to find out if a fruit is bad or not with your eyes, it can be done by an AI as well. There's several other use cases. Happy to talk to you after this session is over.
Yeah, sure. We'll take many things offline. Thank you so much for a brilliant session. Request CMK to hand over a memento.
Thank you so much, sir. Thanks for coming. Yeah, absolutely a pleasure.
Next. 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 Last question.